can go now.
You can start speaking.
You can start speaking, yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Chuck Green. I'm president of Maxx Healthcare. Maxx Healthcare is what's called a population health management firm. And our population of pregnant women and children for the first year of life, what our goal is to maximize the probability of having a healthy newborn. We've been in business since 2001, and we've also been working to lower the possibility of not having healthy outcomes since that time. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Amin Muhammad, student, minister, analyst, student under Chuck, also helper of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan out of Chicago. And I've been fortunate enough to have been in contact and communication and learning from Chuck as Maxx has grown, and in the effort to deal with low birth weight, prematurity among our people, and the facts surrounding that.
I guess what I'll do first is to frame what we consider the problem. We have a company that is managing the care of pregnant women in the Delta region section of the United States. The Delta region is that region which coincides with the Mississippi River, and it's the Delta Regional Authority, which is a quasi-government agency's defined area, which has the worst outcomes for pregnancy, health care, and economics. Approximately 10 years ago, we were asked to set up what's called a case management company, to attempt to lower the costs of the first year of life, buy a health plan, and we proceeded to use what most people use, which is attempting to find moms, make sure that they do what they're to do, that they go to their physician the number of times that they should to receive prenatal care, that they receive prenatal care early, as well as to behave in such a fashion as to maximize having a healthy outcome. What we found was, while that might have been one of the goals, we also found that the hospitals, the clinics, the doctors, and other systems that provide care also have to do their part. This area has the worst outcomes of pregnancy, and those worst outcomes are defined as either being born less than 37 weeks, which is called being born premature, or being born with a birth weight under 2,500 grams, which is approximately 5.5 pounds, which is considered low birth weight. And the task was to ensure that that did not happen disproportionate to the population. And as such, it is extremely high. A pregnant woman who gives birth to a normal child has an average first cost of hospitalization for that child of $1,300 in the first year of life. A child that's born under 37 weeks of age has an average cost between $59,000 and $81,000 for that same period of time. So you can see there's a tremendous amount of difference in terms of the care that's needed. These children, especially amongst black youth, are the ones that are the leading cause of death over 60% of them die within the first 28 days of life, and the majority of them who are premature affect the entire population. The goal that we had was to set up parameters in which the women could have optimal pregnancies, and which meant that the conditions under which their pregnancy was performed. This is a bad explanation, I think, that I'm having of this, but we can cut that out later.
You want to start at a different point?
No, we're just talking right now,
Okay, okay.
just going into it. The problem that we found is that prematurity is caused by biopsychosocial and economic reasons.
Okay.
It is there is no one single thing that causes prematurity. Your doctors have to give you the correct prenatal care. The hospitals have to respond to the clinical guidelines and the pathways in which they have for pregnant women that present themselves. The mom has to learn enough about her pregnancy and the symptoms and signs of prematurity and other symptoms of infection. And in general, the health plan has to ensure that everyone does what they had to do in order to have this healthy outcome. And what we found was that the moms weren't being educated. They didn't come in very early because they didn't know that they were supposed to come in very early. The doctors were not following the guidelines of their academy, which is the American Academy of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. And the hospitals, if they weren't filled, would follow their pathways, but not if the hospital was filled. So all of these variables interacted with one another, and it served to be less optimal for having healthy outcomes. So Alpha Maxx, as a firm, has a job with its nurses, its social workers, and its collaborations with the doctors, the hospitals, health plan, and health centers. They have the job to make sure that we all collaborate in order to maximize those particular goals that we need for our mom, and that's to maximize the probability of having a healthy newborn. Part of what we found was very important was the mental state of the moms. And to the extent that we found that a mom who was respected and honored, who wanted her pregnancy, had better outcomes than moms who did not plan to have a pregnancy and didn't have the support and didn't have the spiritual guidance to calm her in the storm. There's high incidence of physical abuse, of sexual abuse, of other psychosocial problems that led to poorer outcomes. And so we started looking to see what environment could we create in order to maximize having that healthy newborn in a spiritual as well as biopsychosocial and economic framework. So this led to me having conversations with Minister Amin and working through what the practices of the Nation of Islam were and what effects were they having as it pertained to pregnancies, the outcomes of pregnancy in the first year of life.
The unique, I guess, view that I would bring as a student in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is that along with whatever training and education I have, and in particular as a systems engineer and analyst and such, I'm seeing things from the vantage point or the reference point of the teachings. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said that every thing how is it that everything that's written in the scriptures gives you a picture of today. And so as I'm hearing this, and Chuck is pointing out peristats on the March of Dimes site and showing the clear evidence of this tragedy that is unfolding and has been for some time in our community, as well as in general across the spectrum of the human family, but particularly among black people, looking at scripture and trying to find out from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, what and where do you find this? And what it gets down to cause and effect. What's simple in words, but in examining the causative factors that affect pregnancy, affect the genes, affect the development in the womb, affect the mind of the mother. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave a lecture series some time ago called How to Give Birth to a God, in which he talked about the womb of the woman being the creative space that Almighty God, Allah, creates new life. And the agents of that life, of course, are the male and female, sperm from the male and ovum from the female. But that womb is where that development takes place, and dependent upon the mind and spirit of the mother, the environmental factors and how she deals with those factors, it has a major impact on how that new life is developed, how it is treated, how it responds to mother, and how it is made and shaped and comes out of the womb. And we know from now science that bears witness to what we've learned in the teachings, that fear and stress, the thought or the thinking of impending danger or doom, how it has a physiological effect on a person. It causes them perhaps to hold on to fat stores. It causes the blood pressure to be raised a bit, heart rate to raise a bit. And in the cases we've signed in as many clinicians and those we have the research that bears witness to how in the woman, the life itself, the growing life, gives deference to the mother as the primary life that must be cared for, that must be nourished, even though it needs nourishment, even though it needs all that is coming in mother and through mother. But if the mother's spirit and mind is stressed and fearful and fretful and threatened, then the child's development is delayed. The child's growth is delayed to ensure that the mother has what she needs in this time, because that's where its source of strength is. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said things to us and taught us how in slavery that we got fear from, we drank it from the breast of our mothers, and how the fear in the environment, the racism in the environment, and more importantly, the mindset of us as a people being destroyed and being made to think that we're nothing or less than, and then of course the mistreatment of our women in particular, upon the destruction and the emasculation of us as men, making her just a plaything or just a baby-making factory to ensure that there was plenty of livestock, if you will, on the plantation, and that whole conditioning that many have talked about, and we don't need to go into that so much, but the consequence of that is behaviors that's consistent in our community, in which our women aren't cared for, the environment that is produced in this country from white supremacy, and the socioeconomic conditions that come from that, the educational system that comes out of that, it is a condition mentally and spiritually in which the human being that exists in that is always feeling impending doom, always feeling that they're under attack, always feeling stressed. And with women, when that happens, of course, that is mirrored in the womb in which they're carrying this new life. And so you start looking at prematurity and how it's consistent in the black community, whether it's in Oklahoma City or Boston or Los Angeles or Seattle, Washington or Chicago or Charlotte, North Carolina. Wherever you go, you see this spike with reference to us, regardless of the socioeconomic conditions of the individual, how well they're doing, middle class, high class, no class, whatever. It makes no difference because the environment itself is such that it produces these kind of conditions in America. And it is only, as we've seen in the model that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad structured in America, where you find now a lifestyle change, a image change, a dietary change, and a culture that comes from a change in the spiritual point of reference and the acknowledgement of the divinity of the human being and the divinity of the woman in particular, that you find changes that take place that counter, if you will, the trauma, the post-traumatic stress disorder that is prevalent throughout our community. The model set up by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his student, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, represents an absolute solution if fully expressed and carried out to this, to ensure that we can reverse some of this, just how to eat to live, just the acknowledgement. I think that one of the things that Alpha Maxx does, I'm not familiar with too many health management systems, but the whole thought, quote unquote, managed care, when in reality, the sickness mindset of the healthcare industry it produces a set of circumstances and results that really amount to no care at all. Not caring for the mother, not caring for the child, not caring for the consequences of the actions of doctors, nurses, and such. And so by programmatically putting these things in effect, knowing from the teachings what should be done, you see the improvement in the outcomes from what Alpha Maxx is doing.
I think that when Alpha Maxx started, it actually started as a case management firm, and the thought was that all we would have to do was to make sure that the moms did what they were supposed to do, and we call that the behavioral model. So all she had to do was to go to the doctor, follow the doctor's orders, and everything would be all right. And what we were finding was that was not true. And so we looked to see what could we do in terms of psychosocial issues, which would identify what stressors the mom had, which would possibly cause her to not be able to concentrate on her pregnancy or do what was necessary for her to have a healthy outcome. We actually found, starting off, that when the doctors spoke to each other, and what I mean by that is there are times when the prenatal role of a physician is to find high-risk factors and to address those high-risk factors. There are doctors called maternal fetal medicine doctors or perinatologists who are high-risk pregnancy physicians who could be consulted when high-risk factors are found. In our environment, that was not done in a timely fashion. And what we were able to do through collaboration with the University of Tennessee doctors, with private doctors, and with several other health organizations, community health centers, uh, uh, with their cooperation and collaboration, we were able to ensure that if a high-risk factor was found, that it was addressed by the perinatologist. And just by having a physician that would produce a medical record, which would assist the mom in setting up an appointment with the high-risk doctor and would follow up with the mom, that made a difference. And it was, in essence, if the physicians talked, if they collaborated on each and every mom, there was a better outcome. We got our second contract in 2001, and it was one with a firm that no longer exists. It was TLC. It was owned by the University Docs and the Safety Net Hospital. And that gave Alpha Maxx greater resources because the University Docs had the affiliation with many other programs. And those programs allowed us to maximize those biophysical things that you would look at if there was a problem. So we had home visitation programs. We enrolled the moms in the Women and Children's Program, WIC. We gave incentive gifts if they attended their prenatal exams and got their labs and their prenatal vitamins and things of that nature. We gave them incentives, and as importantly, we had nurses that would follow them and which would educate them on their pregnancy so they could become a proactive, active member in their pregnancy. We also had social workers who performed rounds, who went to the clinics, and who sought out our members and performed psychosocial assessments and referred our moms to community resources if we found problems that we had community resources for. In doing those things, our prematurity rates went down, and we started having healthier babies, and therefore healthier babies cost less. The idea ultimately, though, was to ensure that all babies had that same outcome. And then once we had achieved what our goal was, and our goal was to cut the prematurity rate down, and we actually lowered it 42% within a 3-year period. And then we started focusing on the newborns. Is it time for you? On the newborns. And what we wanted to do was to make a difference in the life of the premature babies. So to the extent that they could, that they would be managed in such a way that they could catch up, quote unquote, or to have the same effect that full-term babies had by a particular age, because that's what the neonatologists or the high-risk pediatricians who handle babies that are born before 37 weeks led us to believe. What we found was that the area that manages low birth weight babies, it's called the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, or NICU, was an area that was devised by scientists to attempt to substitute for the placenta and the womb. And as such, the attempt was to fortify the organs and to assist and supplement them until they were developed long enough to support life independently. The process by which the neonatologists went about their business was greatly traumatizing to the newborns. And the effects of their stay in the NICU caused them to have a propensity for attention deficit syndrome, for spinal bifida, for many other afflictions that typically premature babies have a propensity to have. Secondly, there are studies that have shown that NICU graduates, by the time they're 24 to 36 months, have a propensity to show violent behavior activity. And by the year 18, to actually have participated in criminal acts. And what happened when we discovered these research items was that we saw a pattern within our community because we had very high prematurity rates, typically 5 to 6, uh, 1 out of 5 to 6 babies being born premature. And if you look at that, that's 20%. And if you look at the babies that are special needs youth in schools, that are the ones that are the troublemakers, that are the ones that are disruptive in the community, you find that through other research that these were predominantly kids that had started off as premature babies. And I think that was the point when we said what we need is to look at what type of environment could these kids have that would alter their behavior once they got out of the NICU. What type of parenting, what type of nurturing, what type of intense care could be given to stabilize these kids that clearly were not being attached and bonding with their moms when they were born. So
the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in his representative, the minister, he said to us, he pointed out 2 scriptures. He said that in the Bible it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then the Word, next verse said, and the Word becomes flesh and dwelt among men. And then there's a parallel in the Holy Quran, the book of scripture of the Muslims. It says, read in the name of thy Lord who creates man from a clot. Read in thy Lord is most generous who taught by the pen, taught man what he knew not. And I bring it up because Minister Farrakhan has pointed out that looking at the beginning of life and examining what life should be in the DNA, in the genes, that's a word, that's an expression with characteristics. It has attributes in the chromosomes and such that determine how the new life is going to come into the world with black hair, big ears, narrow nose, wide lips, whatever the characteristics, the attributes are. And those characteristics are written chemically in the DNA with that which father contributes and that which mother contributes. Well, we know that, but also in looking at life, looking at the environment, that what Alpha Maxx is trying to address, an environment that is affecting that new life. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in talking about under the subject making of a devil, he talked about a situation in which the new life was introduced to trauma, introduced to violence. He used the language, a needle inserted in the brain. He talked about how lies and murder. And we're taught that, that whenever God is trying to teach children, he paints pictures because we don't understand principles. So the Bible and the Quran are pictures, but there are deeper principles in there that are found in law and found in science that can be understood if one studies and one is wise. And so when we look at the effect in the womb on the new life and prematurity, the trauma on the new life in the womb, the new life going into the NICU, premature, the trauma of IV, the trauma of being removed primarily from the mother, in a cold environment, and the harshness of that for a new life that can't even express itself, can't cry out. And then, as Chuck mentioned, the doctors they taught that they didn't feel any pain, because of the underdevelopment of the brain, or I guess because they couldn't hear him cry out and scream, stop or anything like that. But not to overly simplify it, but the fact remains is that when you have this cause, you have the effect that we see in society. And the model that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad set up in the Nation of Islam, in addition to teaching values in a way that is respectful of the divinity of life and the preciousness of life and the overall value of it, it is also meant to introduce a way to treat and to repair human beings who have fallen into this, who are the result of these facts, these factors that have brought them into being born premature, being affected so much, being traumatized in the womb and out, not knowing how and why they are more prone to drug use and abusive and violent and lack the ability to concentrate and to focus and lack patience and all of those things that we see that are in our community, not just the black community, but the black community in particular is affected so much by this. And there's so many clinicians, researchers who have looked at this and have seen that you're going all the way at the beginning. You can see the factors that have produced the quote-unquote criminal, the quote-unquote delinquent, the quote-unquote alcoholic or drug addict, those who are lacking the ability to produce the peace that a proper chemistry in the brain, a proper and a stable physiology would allow a male or female to produce for themselves. So they don't need the drug, they don't need the alcohol, they don't need the behaviors outside of self because they're whole and they're stable. Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan set up a model where first we're, of course, taught the proper value of self, proper respect, and a discipline is enforced to teach how to eat to live. A regimen is involved of prayer and meditation. There is an exercise, an activity in classes requiring drill before any spiritual education and development in the classes. The drill in the male, female in the school to ensure that the brain itself is in the proper state of mind to learn and to develop and to be at its best. And perhaps key is going back to a community where we came out of that has been destroyed and affected by all of these factors that we talked about that would address the trauma and the traumatized state that the individual has found him or herself in, to address these facts so that they can find release from that trauma and such. And of course, there's a longer discussion on that. But the point is that right in the womb itself, right in the genes, we have these things. And as they have attempted to replace or duplicate the placenta and the environment of the womb in a NICU, with all its harshness and such that is there, well, those that come through that, addressing fallen humanity, if you will, these human beings who, through no fault of their own, have come through a process that injured them, that handicapped them, that limited their ability to be whole and to be what they should be, reflections of Almighty God. Well, it is the program and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as given to us by his student, Minister Farrakhan, we believe is an answer for that, and the model of that is in place to help take and turn this thing around so that redemption, as it is spoken of spiritually, really has a physiological, psychological effect on the human being, so they can in truth be made new. And so when we're talking about the Nova special ghost in your genes, where in epigenealogy now they know that certain things that are in the genetic coding is not erased but turned off. And these things that happen under stress and under trauma in mom and in dad, that turned off gene is passed to the child, but that gene that's turned off can be turned on given the right repair environment, the regenerative environment of proper diet, care, and nutrition, and that will address the abnormalities and the illnesses that are present in the society. I mean, it can happen, and it's being proven through what Alpha Maxx is doing, and through the desire to go forward, the thrust going forward to address the life after birth of the new life and develop them and give them the best chance to become successful adults in maturity.
The book Ghosts from the Nursery by Robin Carmaris was the first collection of scientific hard fact that showed the actual results of particular activity that mothers had, such that if they had certain behaviors, that behaviors would affect their newborns to the extent of driving them towards criminality. When those facts were revealed, and Robin Carmaris had a lecture tour in which she was trying to alert people that the behaviors of pregnant women and the way they were treated was affecting their offspring, it sort of sent a chill up everyone's spine, but at the same time it was sort of pushed to the side because people didn't understand it completely. When Alpha Maxx attended, when members of Alpha Maxx attended some of the presentations, I befriended Robin Carmaris, and we spoke at length in terms of what things could we do for the communities that were producing more premature babies that would end up in this criminal element than other communities. And she started focusing on, even though they went to the NICU, even though it was a traumatic pre-verbal experience, that what was necessary was very focused bonding and attachment and nurturing of those newborns once they graduated from the NICU, and that the first year of life was one in which the mother had to spend really 100% of her time attempting to help her child, stimulating her child, nurturing her child, and doing very important things such as breastfeeding, the use of mother's milk, which is considered the miracle drug for newborns, is very essential for the proper development of all newborns, but in particular NICU graduates, premature babies, starting in the NICU. Before she could breastfeed, if she could express milk, then that would serve to really shorten the stay. It would serve to bolster the immune system. It would serve to increase the intellectual level, as well as to increase the survivability of that newborn once they graduated. You cannot spoil a child the first year of life. That child is 100% dependent on its support system, and it does not have the capacity to care for itself in any way, shape, or form. During the first year of life, sight, sound, taste, touch, equilibrium, and language are the 6 areas of neural development that is targeted in life. And it's up to the mother to ensure, based on those areas, that she does all that she has to do while nurturing and caring and loving that child takes place. If she is not taken care of, then she can't concentrate 100% on her child, and that's when we start having trouble because of socioeconomic conditions such as single motherhood, such as the substance abuse, the and the other problems that go along with not having a mate that concentrates their activity on you. So what we looked to do was to have a situation where the nation or could, based on their environment and culture, could show us, given a model in which the father concentrated on the mother and the mother concentrating on the child, that better outcomes should come to this group. And so I think that it's something that is worth researching to see if the full implementation of the Nation of Islam in Elijah Muhammad's teachings would in fact produce a healthier and more socially adjusted offspring than in an environment which was not the way the Minister Amin has described.
Oh, my turn again. Just one last thing on this is that it is clearer to me than ever before that, number one, what Alpha Maxx is doing and Chuck is doing is it is and I have to speak as I guess a minister primarily. It is timely in that it speaks to what is to happen at the end of the fulfillment of time, if you will. Whereas the answer to the ills that are present in our community, and of course in other communities, would be presented, and that the answer is from God, is consistent, it is not hocus pocus, and it is actually very simple. And it really begins with caring, with respecting women, respecting life. But of course the context of all this is a world and an industry in terms of healthcare that focuses on sickness and not on wellness. And in the way it is structured, as the president has figured out and is having to wrestle with, it is structured to bring profit, if you will, or to it should say bring profit, because it's actually more profitable in the long run to produce healthy outcomes. Mm-hmm. It's cheaper to produce it. But then, of course, you would empower people whom you may not have an interest in empowering. And without getting into all of that, just for any layperson or whatever that may view this, and as we're reflecting on it, it is clear that it begins with us caring about ourselves. It begins with caring about our bodies and knowing that each one of us, and particularly for women, that you are unique and divine in your originality. And there has never been anyone like you, and there never will be. And it is through you that all brilliance, all genius, all the gifts that would come for humanity, it comes from the womb of a woman. But of course, the opposite is true as well, that the most evil, the most wicked, the most criminal that affect humanity also come from women. And when we understand the very simple cause and effect, and we have respect for ourselves and respect for the God that gave us all that we have, and more importantly, how he's gifted us with the opportunity to be co-creators in bringing into existence the answer to prayers and those great gifted ones that we want, it is through women that these gifted ones come. And if a woman's mind is focused and she is loved, and then she pours that love on the child, regardless of the circumstances that we call unfortunate and such, and regardless of whatever it is, you don't know what that child will become. You know, there's no child that's illegitimate. There's no child that should be considered unlawful child. We know that the optimal conditions to develop and to raise a child is with the father and mother, and that is what has to be taught and encouraged, and particularly men have to be taught that so that they have the proper value for women, that they're not playthings to mess around with. The very act of sexual intercourse itself implies the ability to maintain, support, and secure the life that the behavior is meant to produce. So absent that mind, the very act itself is a violation of natural law. So when we can teach that kind of, just without, the spookiness of it, just fundamental law, cause and effect, and teaching the value of life to our women, the value of themselves, and teaching it to our young men, then the womb that is producing this life will produce more and more brilliant ones, as it is doing now, but the mothers don't know the brilliance, and the child can't teach itself. And so we have to put the systems in place to redeem and to repair that. But going forward, we also have to make sure that women are taught the proper value of themselves so that they make better choices in terms of choosing mates, and then we produce an environment that treasures them, treasures the life, and secures the life. Then the stress is reduced, and all the factors that would traumatize life, that's reduced and neutralized, and we can have viable outcomes. We have beautiful children, full-term, healthy outcomes. And then, of course, on the other end of that, then we have healthier adults. We have stable adults. And we have stable environments. And all the peace that we're talking about, it's not coming from space. It's not coming. There's no mystery God as we're taught. So when you want to look for the answer to prayer, you want to look for where heaven is going to come from. Heaven is not coming out of the sky. Really, it's coming from the womb of women. You want to know where the angels are coming from. It's not coming from the sky somewhere. They're coming from the wombs of women. But if you want to know where devils come from, they also come from there as well. And we have to make that change. And that's what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has put before us. And institutionally, there's no institution that is taking this clear and practical law that the Bible and the Holy Quran has put into practice. I'm not, as well informed as I would like, but I do look around and examine a lot, and there's no other institution that is addressing this problem the way Alpha Maxx is doing, in the way that they're caring, but more importantly, optimizing the care and bringing in the technology and the clinicians and the systems that would ensure that pregnant women are cared for, that the care for them, the new life in them, and even after that is ensured the best opportunity, the best possibility of success and growing to be healthy and mature in the best way possible for success in the future.
And I guess to summarize, just on this first discussion that we've had, what we're really looking at is really having a definition of pregnancy as starting when two people decide that they're going to have unprotected sex. Who are these people? And do you understand what the responsibility is when you're performing these acts, and what could possibly come of this if your judgment is impaired and you're doing this with someone who is not at the particular development where they're able to carry through all of everything that's required to have a great outcome. Then you will have a poor outcome. And as was articulated, you can have the genius or you can have the criminal. You can have either or, and it really depends on the woman to the extent of what she will allow to happen, and who is this person that you have an interest, and what is planned, and do you really feel that all of the stages of support that is necessary during pregnancy, at the pregnancy, with the nurturing and development of the newborn, if this person that you're contemplating having unprotected sex, is this person capable of that? And I think that's really a very heavy judgment that women should be taught way before they start performing these acts, as to the sacredness of it, the fact that it creates life, and it can be a life of joy or burden based on the behaviors and activities. I guess that's it for the first round.
So now I just need to get a shot of a.
Right.
Just looking straight at a. Oh, you want to say something?
No. I'm right.
Just get a shot of him as a cutaway. Okay, now, Mister, why don't you take a look at?
Okay.
Just take a look at him like.
Making- Yeah, I'd like to. Are you talking?
Go on.
No. I don't want to record. I don't want to record.
Okay.